Imagine a world where facts are still true, but they no longer add up. A place where 2 + 2 = 4, but everyone's 4 is slightly different. This isn't a fantasy, it's the puzzle that haunted Edmund Halvorson, a reclusive scholar in the late 19th century. While others celebrated the predictable world of steam and steel, Halvorson was obsessed with the invisible frameworks that held it all together. Longitude, time, and measurement. He believed that our certainty rested on a fragile scaffold of agreement, and he dedicated his life to finding its cracks. For 12 years, he pored over expedition reports, not looking for disasters, but for quiet, persistent inconsistencies. And he found one. A strange pattern emerged along a narrow, unremarkable band of longitude. Here, ship logs began to diverge. Distances measured correctly, but travel times didn't match. Calculations were sound, but conclusions disagreed. Halvorson developed a radical hypothesis. What if this meridian didn't distort reality, but instead eroded our ability to agree on it? This idea promised no fame, only ridicule. So Halvorson did the only thing he could. He decided to test it himself. He commissioned a modest but precise ship, the Aquila Minor, equipping it with redundant, independently calibrated instruments. He hired a stoic, practical captain and a patient crew, telling them only what was necessary. Expectation itself was a variable he couldn't afford. They departed without ceremony, slipping out of the harbor into the indifferent sea. For weeks, the voyage was a model of predictability. The world behaved as mathematics said it should. Then they crossed the meridian. There was no jolt, no visible line on the water. The first sign came from the navigator, a tiny persistent discrepancy between distance covered and time elapsed. Less than 1%, but it wouldn't go away. The engineer confirmed the engines were fine. The chronometers agreed with each other. Nothing was wrong, yet the numbers refused to reconcile. Halvorson felt a quiet confirmation. He ordered the ship to follow the meridian. The effect intensified. Arrival times became fuzzy estimates. The captain, concerned only with the ship's safety, saw no danger, but he felt a fundamental shift. Something was fraying. Halvorson gathered the crew and explained that they were in a region where local facts remained true, but their relationship to each other was weakening. He didn't speak of paradox. He spoke of erosion. The crew accepted it, because their instruments were already telling them the same story. Days later, they reached a small, uncharted island. Near the shore, they found stone carvings. Not words, but diagrams. Maps trying to describe something that refused to be fixed. Others had been here. They had encountered the same failure of agreement, and it seemed had simply abandoned the effort. This, Halvorson realized, was the true danger. Civilization doesn't depend on absolute truth, but on shared reference. When that dissolves, coordination falls silent. He had discovered a place that didn't just challenge maps, it dismantled the very idea of certainty. The decision to stay on the meridian wasn't spoken, it just happened. Course corrections were delayed, turns postponed, each decision reasonable on its own. Soon the meridian was no longer an obstacle, it was their path, and the crew began to change. Routine weakened. Tasks done in the morning felt strangely distant by evening. Memory itself seemed to resist calibration. It wasn't that they forgot, it was that events felt disconnected, like a story with its pages out of order. The future narrowed. The men stopped planning ahead, focusing only on the immediate task. The captain saw it clearly. The men, he told Halvorson, are no longer thinking ahead. A ship, he knew, required foresight. The meridian rewarded presence, but it punished projection. Halvorson realized his hypothesis was incomplete. The meridian didn't just disrupt instruments. It disrupted the mind's ability to build a narrative. to connect cause and effect over time. It eroded the very scaffolding of collective understanding. They came across a second island, larger than the first. It was scattered with the ruins of a settlement, slowly being reclaimed by nature. In the center stood a circular stone structure, its walls covered in complex diagrams, desperate attempts at orientation. On a pedestal lay a collection of abandoned instruments, compasses, notebooks, sextants. It was a repository of failure. The notebook showed that others had gathered here, trying to reconcile their findings, but they couldn't. They lacked a shared frame of reference. They hadn't been destroyed by disaster. They had simply given up. As the Aquila miner sailed on, the crew adapted in a way that terrified Halverson. Disagreements became common, but they were emotionally neutral. People accepted that their version of reality didn't match their neighbors, and it didn't bother them. It wasn't chaos, it was multiplicity. Halverson imagined a world trapped in the Meridian's influence, not destroyed, but scattered into isolated pockets of local truth, unable to trade, govern, or build anything larger than what was right in front of them. The end of civilization wouldn't be a bang, but a slow, quiet fade into silence. The captain had seen enough. My responsibility, he told Halverson, is not to the hypothesis. It is to what follows from it. He understood that prolonged exposure wouldn't destroy his crew physically, but functionally. It would dissolve them into a collection of individuals who could no longer form a cohesive whole. He ordered a gradual turn away from the Meridian. As they sailed east, the world slowly stitched itself back together. Calculations began to converge. Discrepancies resolved. The future opened up again. The crew started planning, anticipating, connecting, but Halverson felt a new kind of dread. The Meridian's influence was receding, and with it, the very evidence of its existence. He was trapped in a paradox. The phenomenon could only be studied by those inside it, but to be inside it was to lose the ability to form a coherent conclusion. Back in Le Havre, Halverson faced his final dilemma. To publish his findings would be to reveal a potential weapon, a way to dismantle coordination, to create a refuge from shared reality. He knew that our world depended not on being true, but on being shared. In the end, he sealed his notes. He deposited incomplete copies in separate archives and locked the original away. The Meridian remained a secret. Years later, among his papers, a single separate note was found. It read, "There are truths that dissolve the moment they are shared, and agreements that hold only because they are incomplete." Halverson's Meridian wasn't a threat to the world itself. It was a mirror, showing just how fragile our shared reality already was, and that was the most dangerous discovery of all. Thank you for watching.